The beast, the best, the comfiest, the most Transformers-like in a motorcycle that is chosen the most often by police forces around the world. And not because it's the cheapest, actually pretty much the opposite. This is the newest BMW R1250RT and I am VTold. Now, if you are wondering, what do I expect from this newest RT, then you're in the right place. And I'm quite familiar with the RT family, as for some time I was riding the R1150RT on a daily basis, and we've become quite good friends. So let's go ahead and dig really deeply into how this newest one performs. Note that I'm going to probably surprise you in some places, but I am not sponsored by any brand, and that's why this can be an honest review. So first things first, this new RT looks in a very original way, and please let me know if you agree, because I am going to risk stating an opinion that it is the craziest looking BMW motorcycle today, even more crazy than R1250 GS or a GS Adventure. If the good old K1300R was still with us, probably that would be the most crazy. But today I'm gonna say the RT is the craziest looking. This is because of its front lights that are huge and look very aggressively. Design is one thing, but another is that if you actually switch all of those lights on, the bike looks like one huge transformer from the front, and it's close to impossible for it to ride unnoticed by car drivers. This would make it one of the best motorcycles to ride in traffic jams, one of the safest. It would, if not for the crazy width, which for the first time was actually getting in my way. And so now it's even too wide, this bike, as for my taste. It's also not going to be the best because its exhaust is really quiet, so some people whose cars already don't have mirrors, they may still not notice it coming. So the new design clearly stands out, and you can see it when being on the streets. Never has an RT been that crazy looking. I do like that. I also like that there is traction control, cornering ABS, LED front light, riding modes to choose from, and some other cool things in the equipment like heated seats. Now let's move to how it is to ride, because once you're on the bike, this is what matters the most. And it's super easy to become friends with the current RT thanks to its keyless access. So you keep your key anywhere on your person, and the bike senses that once you are in close proximity to it. So you basically sit on it and can switch it on without using the key, which is great and is super convenient, especially for people who travel in the whole protective gear and never remember in which out of 78 pockets their bike key is at the certain moment. So no need to remember that at all with the RT, because you won't start it if you don't have it on yourself. If you have it on yourself, you just start it and you will find it later if you need it. So here we've got the newest BMW's two-cylinder boxer engine with 136 horsepower at 7,750 RPM, an insane 143 Nm of torque at just 6,250 RPM. This is really low, and basically means it's actually the same as in the GS. And this means that wherever you are, in whichever gear you are, and no matter what speed, the RT will explode forward every time you open the throttle. And that's no bullshit. It really is not just theory. It won't have the high-speed performance of a sports bike, but riding next to one at, let's say, 100 km/h, so not such high speed, and opening the throttle at third or fourth gear, I am going to bet that the RT will smoke. It will smoke any inline four-cylinder sports bike which will be in the same gear at the same speed. And of course, once they reach higher RPM, which would be like at the fourth gear would be 180 or something, 160 km/h, they will accelerate more quickly, but that will take time. So, for example, sudden overtaking will be so much smoother and more effortless on an RT, on a boxer engine. The boxer engine is just fantastic for that, with its plenty of torque and it being so low in the RPM range. Really, this is a big deal, guys. It's like having a huge turbo diesel engine with two turbines for the low and for the high range. So no matter where you are, it will kick ass. If you haven't ridden any of the 2014 and newer boxes, then please do, and you will see how enjoyable it makes the whole riding experience. If you haven't, you will see why people choose those bikes. Just, that instant torque and power. It's awesome. The only thing that could annoy is that when it idle, reaction to opening throttle, like quickly opening and closing, it seems laggy. As if you could open and close the throttle and like the bike wouldn't even realize. And I suspect this ride-by-wire technology to be the cause of that, but it just may be a little bit numb. But it only happens when you're revving a bike at idle, so there's no negative impact when riding. But I notice it immediately every time, and it annoys me. I like just revving bikes, so that's my thing. so sorry for mentioning, maybe it's not right, but I just wish it responded more quickly. Alright, so I pretty much told you that I like how the engine makes the bike behave, and that is correct. Now on the other hand, I wasn't impressed with its suspension because it felt just like the old 2002 R1250RT that I had ridden for so many years and many years ago. Now, look, this doesn't mean that it's bad, because it's not. However, after almost 20 years of development, and talking about electronic ESA adjustable suspension that has been there in the RT for many years also now, I thought that this would be a Rolls Royce on two wheels, and it is not. No, it is not. It's nice and soft in the initial stage of absorbing road irregularities, let's call them that way, bumps. So if they are small, it's fine. It also deals very nicely with longer altitude changes, so like it makes them really pleasant, but that's easy. It is nicer than many other bikes, but then once it's getting a bit more rough and more challenging, you can feel all that weight of the bike hitting your spine from underneath, and that can be even bloody 280 kilograms with a tank full of fuel. There was one spot where I managed to record how it behaves, and in that spot I did lose contact with the bike's seat, and I wasn't riding it super quickly. RT literally collapsed underneath me, and I fell on it with my butt. Same happens with regular bikes in that same spot, and only adventure motorcycles deal with it with dignity thanks to their longer wheel travel. So like the wheel goes down, but let's say the body, the frame stays up, and it goes down slowly, more slowly, so that your butt can actually follow. It's not like it's being pulled down. But all right, that's extreme, and let's say that's 5 to 10% of riding conditions, like very rough and really challenging. Now, when cornering on even slightly uneven surfaces, there's this weird wobbly feel. I know I'm complaining, but this is something that really surprised me. I do remember the RTs. There's a lot of weight, but the picture that I get in my head is that when this happens, I see the rear single-sided swing arm with the drive shaft inside, that's BMW's parallel lever. I see it as being loose and bending left and right, which is not true. Of course it doesn't do that, but this is me getting that feeling. That's what I imagine is happening with a bike when it happens, and it doesn't happen with any other bike. K1600 GT wouldn't do that, and it also has a parallel lever rear suspension, which is that single-sided swing arm with a drive shaft, and it is a heavier bike. It's a bigger and heavier bike. Also, when braking and accelerating, having the bike at some angle, so like leaning left or right, it would try to straighten it. If you would add throttle, it would try to straighten it. If you try to brake with a front brake, it would try to straighten. I mean that it would try to kind of stand up, and it would require some reaction from a rider. So you gotta be prepared for that. Just take a look at it in the video. First, I did accelerate a lot in the curve, and then used brakes while leaning a bit to see how it would react. And anyhow, all this wasn't really doing anything bad, but was giving you a feeling of losing a bit of control over the bike and would make me think that there's something perhaps wrong. Now, why am I saying all this? Because I know that it can be done better with a rather similar overall setup of suspension. The big GS doesn't do that at all. And this isn't even about the wheels travel, because the GS has a longer wheels travel, but about how the suspension is tuned. And I guess there's nothing more to add to that. It's generally comfortable and feels like a cloud, but in a limited range. And actually, it loses its composure much more early and much more suddenly than I would expect. And that the same thing would happen with the old 1150 and maybe not so much with the first R1250RT, which was the lightest out of all those modern RTs. Still, it is barely even affected by shifting weight when accelerating or braking, thanks to its telerever front suspension. And really, guys, it stays flat at all times, and this is magic. This is magic. So if I just got you worried, then go for the adaptive suspension, the ESA S-Up. This will give you a possibility to stiffen the suspension. What doesn't need upgrading is the brakes, and man, these are the best ever, I think. They were always very good in RT, even the R1250RT, that's the oldest RT that I had a chance to ride, and they are just better and better. And now it was enough for me to use one finger in pretty much all the situations. I almost always keep two fingers on the brake lever, and perhaps if I were riding the new RT every day, I would limit that to one finger now. The front brake is so strong and easy to use, and that's brilliant. The new adaptive cruise control, which is a first for BMW in motorcycle, and if you're riding a lot on highways, then you may consider getting it, as it can make your long, especially rides, more comfortable and also slightly more safe. Regular cruise control is there anyway. This element strictly depends on how and where you're going to be riding, because in the city there aren't any benefits from having it, I believe. What I would like it to have is blind spot monitoring system that Ducati already have in their Multistrada V4, that also has a radar in the rear. Here with those mirrors, especially in the beginning, such a system could really help a lot, because those are no conventional mirrors that are below the handlebar. Now you perhaps wonder how the windshield is doing, and it's doing all right. It is electrically adjustable, and there is a dedicated switch for that on the handlebar, and that's fancy. I do like that, but mostly to impress pedestrians and car drivers at the traffic lights. At the top position, I was still getting hit with air in the top of my helmet. And there are motorcycles on which that may not be happening. I'm 183 centimeters tall, and I would expect that in the tallest setting, in which I have already to look through the windshield, it would be like in a living room. So I preferred in the end to lower the screen completely, or like leave it halfway there so I don't have to look through it, and at least till here the air is blocked and the rest is coming without any turbulence. So here you can hear what it sounds like in the helmet area. Then the deflectors that are on the sides and huge fairings do the job, and shoulders don't get hit with any air. I couldn't feel anything really out there, so that's really good and perfect. The digital screen in front is insane. It's insane in a positive way. That's the biggest screen that I've ever seen in any motorcycle in my life with my own two eyes. Graphics are very nice and modern. They are really nice. It's not like some pixelated crap. Everything works smoothly and without any lagging. You can even split the screen to have navigation and some information next to it. Controlling the screen with a switch and a wheel, so two separate points of contact, it needs some practice, but where I was expecting the wheel to do the job, like simply go down. If you roll the wheel, you would expect the menu to go down, but no. Here you have to push a switch with a thumb, and I couldn't learn that. All that time I was still thinking in the end that having the knob, the wheel do that, just would work better because you control movements left to right with the wheel. So why not up and down? Why is there a separate switch for that? I don't get that. I'm sure there is a reason for that, but maybe it's just limited to the navigation. So, but hey, look, years ago it was hard to get used to those 3 separate indicator buttons in an RT, and after some time it was great. It felt better than regular. So maybe it just needs more time than here as well, just as it needs some time to get used to the mirrors, and then they are totally fine. Here they work slightly as a wind protection, so there is an additional benefit of them. Visually, they make the bike seem extremely wide, and it really is wide. I didn't feel it that much in the 1200 RT, but I was hesitating much more before getting in between cars than I used to with previous generations. So I wonder how those policemen deal with it now with the newest generation. Now, the seat is very, very comfortable. I would say that it may actually be perfect for some. I really did like it, and I'm picky here. I like my butt to be treated nicely, and this is a very comfortable, very nice seat. And the sitting position is pretty low, while the seat height is adjustable, and that's between 80.5 centimeters or 82.5 centimeters. This combined with foot pegs at the regular height, it makes the knee angle quite large, and you cannot lower the foot pegs here. So in the end, I would prefer a position on a big GS because of a larger distance between the seat and the foot pegs. I did notice that, and now I have to say that it's not really for me. So please go test ride the RT before actually purchasing it, especially if you are a taller rider. The posture, the position on the RT seemed to me just like on all other RTs, and I like it because it's perfectly upright as for the upper body, and on that comfortable seat it doesn't get better than that to me. It's just a legs problem in my case. I said it doesn't get better than that. Actually, it does get better than that, because on a cold day you might heat both seats up. Of course you will use just one, but you can do it for your passenger as well, so it does get better than that. And of course the grips are heated too. There can also be a quick shifter added to the RT to allow you to change gears without using clutch. It's very convenient and worth paying extra for it if you like aggressive riding. Don't get me wrong, this is not automatic transmission. It just lets you move the lever without pulling the clutch from the first to second, and so on and so on, and then back. This newest R1250RT is interesting, if not to say that it actually also confuses me a bit. On one hand, its engine with ShiftCam technology now and enough power and plenty of torque provides great performance from the lowest RPM. Yeah, it really encourages to ride quickly and play with the bike. Yet on the other hand, the suspension is like a jelly whenever the conditions get a bit more demanding. So the bike is super quiet and very smooth in its power delivery. Yet on the other hand, if you want to be fully protected from the wind, you will have to look for some better aftermarket windshield and replace it. On the technology and brake side, it's just fantastic. Then the screen by default doesn't show you how much fuel there is left in the tank. Bloody hell, what the hell is that? You need to search for it in the additional menus, and it's kind of like Apple company removing a headphone jack in an iPhone. If you agree that it was unnecessary, give the video a like. And I must say that I do like the current RT's look, and front lights do the job. It's also very well balanced at low speeds, which makes it easy to control and not struggle in tight low speed situations where otherwise large weight could be an issue. It's not as good as a GS, but overall, the newest R1250RT gets the score of 7 out of 10 on Vitol's recommendation board, and I think that with those few mods, like an aftermarket windshield and ESA dynamic suspension, it could get an 8 out of 10 within its category. The engine gives so much punch and fun that I believe that it would deserve to get such a high score. It's really good as a whole package, and build quality is literally flawless. If you like this video, please give it a like and see you